This is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's about 4,500 years old, and even today it's still one of the most impressive things humans have ever built. It's made of more than 2 million giant stone blocks, some of them heavier than an elephant. And it was built with no machines, no trucks, no cranes, nothing. It's so massive and so incredibly precise that a lot of people simply refuse to believe humans could have done it. They're convinced it had to be aliens. But the real story of how it was actually built is even more incredible than any alien theory. And the truth is, we really do know how they did it. First, the scale, because without it, the whole alien idea makes no sense. The Great Pyramid was the tallest building on Earth for almost 4,000 years. It's built from more than 2 million blocks of stone. On average, each one weighs about 2.5 tons, as much as a large car. Some weigh far more. The heaviest blocks inside it weigh as much as 80 tons. That's heavier than a fully loaded truck. And they got these up dozens of meters into the air. And it's not just the size, it's the precision. The base is almost a perfect square, and it's level across its entire width to within a couple of centimeters. The blocks are fitted together so tightly that in places you can't even slide a knife blade between them. Stones weighing tons, fitted like puzzle pieces. The whole pyramid lines up with the directions of the compass, north, south, east, and west, almost perfectly. And they did that without a compass, which hadn't been invented yet. And here's the key part. When this happened, around 4,500 years ago, no iron tools, no wheels for heavy loads, no machines at all, just stone, copper, rope, and people. So the question is obvious. How could people with such simple tools cut, move, and stack millions of giant stones, this precisely, this long ago? For a long time, no one had a clear answer. And when people can't explain something, they start looking for answers elsewhere. Some of those answers got pretty wild. The most famous one, of course, aliens. The idea that beings from another world either built the pyramids themselves or handed humans the technology to do it. Supporters of this idea ask a simple question. If primitive people couldn't possibly have done this, then someone more advanced must have. And who's more advanced than aliens? They point to the precision, the perfect angles, the way the pyramid lines up with the stars. To them, it all looks too perfect for the ancient world. They point to the weight. How do you lift an 80-ton block with no cranes? To a lot of people, that just sounds impossible without some secret lost technology. Some even claim the 3 pyramids of Giza are lined up to match 3 stars in the sky, as if they were a message pointing to the heavens. It sounds mysterious, but it doesn't hold up. The whole theory rests on one belief, that the ancient Egyptians were too primitive to do this on their own. And that's exactly where it falls apart. Because over the years, archaeologists have found a mountain of evidence showing exactly how the pyramids were built. And none of it involves aliens. We have their tools. We have the quarries where they cut the stone. We have the town where the builders lived, their writings, even their own drawings of how they moved heavy blocks. So let's start with the basics. Who actually built the pyramids, and why? The pyramids were giant tombs built for the kings of Egypt, the pharaohs. To the Egyptians, the pharaoh was a living god. When he died, he needed a monument worthy of a god, something massive and eternal to carry him into the afterlife. And here's the first big myth to clear up. The pyramids were not built by slaves whipped into labor, like in old movies. That picture is simply wrong. They were built mostly by ordinary Egyptians, skilled workers and farmers, who were organized, housed, fed, and paid for their work. It was a job, not a punishment. Many of the workers were farmers. Every year, the Nile River flooded their fields for months, and they couldn't farm. During that time, they went to work on the pyramid instead. They were split into teams with their own names, almost like crews competing with each other. This was a national project and a point of pride, not a death camp. At the peak, tens of thousands of people worked on a single pyramid over about 20 years. The real secret wasn't technology. It was organization on a massive scale. Here's something that quietly destroys the alien idea. The Egyptians didn't build the Great Pyramid on their first try. They worked their way up to it over generations. The earliest pyramids were rough, stepped piles of stone. Over time, they got bigger and smoother as the builders learned. You can literally watch them improving, pyramid by pyramid. One pyramid even changes its angle halfway up. The builders started too steep, realized it was becoming unstable, and made the top shallower to save it. They made a mistake and fixed it as they went. Some early pyramids partly collapsed because the builders got it wrong. And that's the point. Aliens with perfect technology don't make failed attempts and learn from their mistakes. Humans do. The Great Pyramid wasn't a miracle dropped from the sky. It was the high point of centuries of human trial and error. By the time they built it, they'd had a lot of practice. So how did they actually do it? Step by step. It starts with the stone. Most of the blocks are limestone, and they came from a quarry right next to the building site. Limestone is fairly soft, as stone goes. The workers cut it with simple copper tools and harder stones, carving channels around each block until they could free it from the rock. They'd drive wedges into the stone to split off clean blocks. It was slow, hard work, but it didn't need any technology they didn't have. Just muscle, patience, and skill. Some parts used granite, which is far harder than limestone. For that, they used balls of an even harder stone to slowly pound it into shape. Brutally slow, but it worked. That granite didn't come from nearby. It came from hundreds of kilometers up the Nile. They cut it there, loaded it onto boats, and floated it down the river to the pyramids. The Nile was their highway. Moving heavy stone over water is far easier than dragging it over land, and the Egyptians were expert boat builders. The river did a lot of the hard work. But you still have to move those blocks across the sand to the pyramid. With no wheels for such heavy loads, they put the blocks on big wooden sledges and dragged them. Teams of dozens of men pulled each sledge with ropes. But dragging a heavy sledge across dry sand is incredibly hard. The sand piles up in front, and the whole thing digs in. So they used a clever trick. They poured water onto the sand in front of the sledge. We know this for certain, because they drew themselves doing exactly that. Wet sand is much firmer than dry sand. It stops piling up, and the sledge slides over it far more easily. This one simple trick cut the effort roughly in half. Modern experiments have shown this really works. With wet sand and enough people, even a massive block becomes movable. No magic, no machines needed. Now for the part that really makes people think of aliens. How did they raise the blocks higher and higher as the pyramid grew? The answer is surprisingly simple. Ramps. A ramp is just a long, gently sloping mound of earth and rubble. Instead of lifting a block straight up, which is nearly impossible by hand, they dragged it up the slopes. A long, low ramp turns an impossible lift into a hard but doable drag. As the pyramid got taller, the ramp grew longer and higher right along with it. The exact shape of these ramps is still debated. Some think they wrapped around the pyramid in a spiral. Others think ramps ran up inside the pyramid itself. Probably they used a mix. At the top, and for fine adjustments, they used simple levers, long poles to pry and nudge each block exactly into place. Again, simple tools in a lot of skilled hands. And the famous precision? That came from careful measuring with cords and weights, endless checking, and the patient skill of people who did this their whole lives. Not magic. Mastery. Even that perfectly level base has a simple explanation. They likely used water to find a true level across the ground. Water always settles flat. And cut the rock to match. And lining it up with the compass directions? They could do that by watching the stars, the sun, and the shadows they cast. Skilled observers can find true north with no modern instrument at all, but the single best proof that humans built the pyramids isn't a tool or a ramp, it's the place where the builders lived. Archaeologists found their entire town right next to the pyramids. They found houses, bakeries, breweries, and workshops. A whole working town built to support the project. Real people lived here, by the thousands, for decades. The bakeries are enormous, built to feed a small army. The records show the workers got big daily rations of bread and beer. These people were well looked after. They even found skeletons of workers with healed, broken bones, which means they got real medical care when they were hurt. You don't give that to disposable slaves, you give it to valued workers. And here's the detail that ends the argument. The workers were buried in their own tombs, right beside the pyramids, in a place of honor. Slaves don't get honored graves next to a god-king. Inside the pyramid, on hidden blocks, they even left graffiti, the names of their work crews, scribbled with pride. The builders quite literally signed their work. We've even found the journal of an official who helped haul stone for the Great Pyramid, describing the daily work. The evidence isn't vague. It's detailed, human, and everywhere. So why does the alien theory refuse to die? Partly because the truth takes effort to learn, while aliens did it, is a simple, exciting shortcut. And it's been pushed for decades in books and TV shows, repeated so often that it starts to feel true. But repeating something doesn't make it real. There's also something a little insulting hidden in the theory. It assumes ancient people were too simple to build something amazing on their own. The evidence says they absolutely weren't. Because here's the thing. The real story isn't less impressive than aliens. It's more impressive. Ordinary humans did this, with copper, rope, water, and their own hands. They did it with brilliant, simple tricks, incredible organization, and the sheer determination of tens of thousands of people working toward one goal for a generation. The pyramids have stood for 4,500 years. Empires have risen and fallen around them. And they're still here, still standing, still leaving us in awe. They aren't proof that aliens once visited Earth. They're proof of something just as amazing. What ordinary people can do with enough skill, enough planning, and enough time. The greatest mystery of the pyramids was never who built them. It's how people so long ago dreamed this big and actually pulled it off.